All right, everybody, welcome back to coverage here of the U.S. Regional Championship here in sunny San Diego. My name is Corey Baumeister. That's Daquan Watson. We're going to be bringing you coverage here all day long. So now that we have checked out our first match, we have our established metagame. So let's take a look at it and check out this really awesome field here. So starting off, Esper Legends at 15% of the metagame as the top deck, but only 15% for the top deck, Daquan. I think that is pretty awesome. Tell me a little bit about all the rest of this.
Yeah, I think that's where you want to be, right? Like you have
great.
The top two decks they just barely make up 30% of the field. So that puts you in a pretty good place. And I'm not really surprised at the other big decks as we go down the list. You know, you see lots of mono white mid-range, Grixis Midrange, which we already saw on camera. There'll definitely be more later in the day. You know, Rakdos Reanimator, probably a bit of the surprise to be played that much, if we were to say, like, which of these are surprising us. But also, Celestia Toxic. Like, this is one of those decks that people kind of went, well, it's annoying when you play on the ladder or an arena. Are people really playing that in paper standard? Well, it turns out the answer is yes. They are playing it.
Totally agree. And then we take one look at that other category, 230 decks playing just other stuff, maybe little variations on Grixis, maybe, you know, black-white mid-range and stuff like that. Either way, we have a really diverse field. Nobody has a big agreement on what is the best deck, and that just leads for some really good magic. So now we're going to head into our round 2 feature match, starting with the most handsome and talented Corey B in the business. That's Corey Burkhart. We got Corey Burkhart playing Esper Legends. Tell me a little bit about that, Daquan.
Yeah, this is going to look a lot like what we just saw, right, in the previous matchup, where it's same things where you got a full set of Denick, you got a full set of Shieldred. Like, I honestly expect this to be kind of like the prototypical build for this deck that we're going to see throughout the weekend.
You know, and as you say that, Daquan, I actually think this is card for card Sam's build. I guess there was 2 Urtais where Sam only played 1, but yeah, almost identical builds to what we saw last round. So let's see who's Corey's opponent is going to be. All right, we got Darren here on Grixis Midrange, and ooh, there's some spicy additions to this one, Daquan. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, I was just looking at this, and we have a couple of one-ofs in here that we're kind of like flexing some spots, you know, where it looks like we've got a one-of negate, we've got a one-of extra removal card here and there. Like, I kind of like what we're doing, kind of like giving ourselves a few more options, since this is the type of deck that can see some extra cards.
Yeah, and some crazy stuff in the sideboard here. We see 3 Jace, the Perfect Mind. That's something we don't see a lot. And Cut Your Losses. So some really cool additions here from Darren that we haven't necessarily seen in other matches. So without any further ado, let's get into this match. This looks awesome.
Yeah, I like what we got going on here. When I see a build like this, I'm always curious of, like, if the player is speculating or if the player has come across something that gave them the idea to do this through testing.
Exactly. And I mean, yeah, most of the time, these players have played a lot of Magic to get ready for this event. So I can't imagine Darren is just like, yeah, I'll just put these cards in for no reason. I'm sure they are definitely good against certain things.
I will say, though, I've been part of some testing groups for events where your results kind of get skewed based on what your group's playing, and it can lead you down a bad road sometimes.
Totally agree with you. That is a problem with every testing team I've ever been on, is we always have to have that kind of get grounded day where we're just like, okay, should we, like, you know, just play against random stuff on Magic Online, make sure our deck is still good. So totally with you on that. All right, both hands look pretty good, though. Appropriately
in chat, Man Leggings is asking who has the best sock game in MTG. And honestly, I'm going to tell you, though, if you ain't got those Bomba socks, you're missing out, because them things are good.
I mean, come on. It's got to be the creator of the game, Richard Garfield. Have you ever seen
He does have some legit socks. Like, if you've ever seen him in person, he's like the prototypical nerd professor, but with an amazing sock game.
Yeah, he never matches his sock, and both sides are always awesome. So, I mean, it's got to be our creator of the game.
Looks like both players are taking a mulligan here.
Okay. Both players did have functional hands too, so this was definitely a case of, I want to mulligan to better cards in the matchup. Corey Burkhart definitely had a hand that didn't have a 2-drop, you know, so that is a big problem with Esper Legends. That's a deck that likes to mulligan a little bit more aggressively because you very much care about the curve out. Grixis Midrange, still pretty important as well. If you're on the draw and you don't have a 2-drop or a 2-mana removal spell, that's going to be a problem as well. But outside of that, you're pretty much okay with a lot of different hands.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking at too. It looked like Darren could have played his hand, but again, this is one where the players have probably played this matchup 100 times. They kind of know what they're looking for a start, and if it's just not there, take the mulligan.
One thing I just really want to go back to here, Daquan, is Darren's sideboard with the Jace and the cut your losses. Cut your losses, for anybody who didn't know what this card was, you know, me before I read it. 6 mana, casualty 2, target player mills half their library rounded down. So in the right matchup, this Grixis list, and Darren just goes for a mill you out plan. I would imagine like mono white mid range.
Exactly.
I wanna see that game plan in action so bad. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I've even seen some versions that are playing the artifact creature that has not flashback, but whatever. The thing you play it out of the graveyard where you can pay like 3 blue and 1 or whatever to mill half your cards like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is a extremely powerful card.
All right, looks like we're keeping here, both of them at 6.
Both hands look good. I saw Rafine from Corey. And yeah, just another solid hand as well from Darren. No 2-drops or anything, so that can be a little bit brutal if there's a fast start, but still perfectly functional hand.
Yeah, Darren looks like he's got a Fable and an Invoke to spare with plenty of mana, so we shouldn't be missing any drops here.
And I mean, one thing that is kind of crazy to me, and most of the time, if you see Corey Burkhardt and someone has the word Grixis in their deck title, it's always Corey who is playing that. He is a Grixis master, so pretty shocking to not see Corey playing his favorite strategy.
Though Corey did get in there for 1 and started the toxic counter, so we have 1 poison.
Yes, something that I don't know if I've ever killed anyone with from the Esper Legends deck, but still cool.
I mean, I guess there's a world with Rafine maybe that could come up, but not likely.
Yeah.
We go ahead and go for the Throat the token before Darren even gets a chance to put it on the table.
All right, and here it looks like Rafine's gonna come down.
All right, so we're up to 3 if we choose to discard a spell. Yep, the other looks like another Skrelv went to the yard. So we get in for 2. We're up to Oh yeah, just steals the 1. Never mind.
Yeah, so it's still always just 1. Yeah,
just 1.
You gotta love how much fun these players are having. You kind of said it right away as these everyone's so happy to be back, but also Corey's one of the best people to play against. Always having a good time in your match, always smiling, chatting you up as he destroys you half the time is my experience playing against him. But
yeah, now this is where it's a little tough for Darren. It's like, okay, what are we discarding? We got to get rid of something to try to get some playable cards because he did have a lot of mana sources in hand. So it was like we're just digging for spells at this point.
Yep, there was Invoke and there was for sure a Corpse Appraiser. So you at least have the Corpse Appraiser available to eat this extra Skrelv that went to the graveyard. And then, you can try to find an answer to the Rafine. But this is the one time when Darren is able to use a removal spell on Rafine. But no matter what, it can't just cost 1. Ideally, Darren would like to go, Corpse Appraiser plus cut down, but with the word 1, not possible.
Yeah, opted to go with Shieldred here, dealing 2 damage to Corey on the draw step. And I guess that means Corey also didn't have any instant speed removal to kill the Shieldred as well.
Yeah, looks like Corey only has 2 Go for the Throats and 1 Urtai as or 2 Urtais as the only way to actually deal with Shieldred here straight away.
And one of the cool things I don't think people pay attention to is actually Shieldred is a somewhat of a counter to Rafine because they can get those extra bonus points, but it's going to cost them 2 life a card.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be like, I got all these this sweet card manipulation, but at what cost, All
right, looks like a Dinnick, the fancy whatever that pack was for Innistrad or whatever.
Yeah. Alternate art Dinnick, I do like all the alternate art, especially like the borderless, like pathways when those were in and stuff like that. I think these cards are really cool. They make it a little tougher for us, but you know what? That doesn't matter. Cool cards are all that really matters.
Always customize for fun. We'll if it makes our job harder, we'll figure it out. So we did manage to flip. We've got the reflection of Kiki Jiki down. Nothing to copy yet, but we do know that there's a Corpse Appraiser, so we could copy that for some extra value.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a pretty solid play no matter what. But there is the Denic to stop any of the creatures being 8. So
That is true.
Denica doing a really nice job here, not allowing any corpses to be appraised.
All right. So we're just passing. We're going to go to Corey's draw step. He's flashing in that Urtai.
One of the 2 Urtais in the main, and that is, pretty much the main reason to deal with Shieldred. It's so powerful. It's so tricky. And Darren's going to be really hoping for one of those 2 make disappears. Doesn't look like it's there. At least you get a card out of it. But yeah, all of a sudden, Darren's falling really far behind.
Yeah, this is the big turn here for Corey. That can you get in there, maybe even make a sizable Denic?
Yep.
Like this is your chance. You're going to get to see however many cards you want. If you want to get 2 or if you want to get 3.
Yeah, and this just really looks like Darren is debating right now, what am I supposed to do with this removal spell? Because, well, the Skrelv is protecting it, So at this point, it almost doesn't matter what Darren has in hand unless it's like, double cut down, I guess. That would kind of do something. Go for the throat plus cut down, but Darren's in a really rough spot here.
And I remember in the preview season when we saw Skrelv, I was telling people like this could end up being the most played 1-drop in Standard in a long time. And it's kind of coming down that way. Like this card is so good in so many different decks. And it's in a lot of lists this weekend.
Oh, 100%. And yeah, when this card got previewed, it does its best kind of Mother of Ruins impersonation where, yeah, maybe that card is a little bit more powerful with protection and stuff like that, but it's pretty close. And getting pretty close to Mother of Ruins in Standard is extremely powerful. So yeah, an incredible Magic card.
Yeah, I definitely would take that option for sure. All right, so we decided to put the extra counter on Rafine. And Darren's going to load up something here.
All right, looks like we have a removal spell coming down, but yeah, even if this is Go for the Throat, there's technically no targets for Go for the Throat. There is targets, but Skrelv is able to protect.
Yeah. Is our plan to use 2 cards here? No? Just taking the 2 life?
I think that was Darren is at a place where he's just thinking, I need to do some unorthodox plays to be able to try to break through on Corey's board because, otherwise this play doesn't make a ton of sense. But I just think Darren's so far behind, you have to try something.
Yeah, and I think if he is holding Corpse Appraisers, this Denic really is causing a problem for him.
Totally agree. Yeah, and Go for the Throat with Skrelv being an artifact too is just, really, really brutal. It's doing absolutely nothing.
All right, what do we got here, Darren? Show us something. Okay.
There's a cool one.
We get to look at their top 5, I believe it is. And we get to get an instant or a sorcery, if I remember right. Let me double check that card. I feel like I'm
a non-creature. A non-creature, so pretty close. Yeah, wandering. So it is a nice card with reflection. It's another target for that. Basically, it's Corpse Appraiser 5 and 6. It's not quite as good as that card, but in this situation where Denic is on the battlefield, it is better. So this is a spot where Darren really has to find probably another Go for the Throat to be able to deal with a Rafine. That's probably the scariest card, but then there's still plenty of other tricky cards. And Corey has been looting, so presumably Corey has still a very powerful hand.
Now,
even if it's only 1 card.
Cut down was actually the best card really to get because now you can also copy the creature you just made and get more cards because you've already flipped the reflection. So, and you can block Rafine, which was going to be a problem. So this is actually
definitely
that was a pretty solid turn for Darren, really.
Yep. And the one thing I would say is, as far as timing goes, just in case there is a Go for the Throat or something, if I were Darren, I probably would have activated that reflection on my own end step while everything is still tapped out. That way, no matter what, you still have a blocker since the reflection token doesn't go away until Corey's end step. And you will for sure be able to get the card, because if there is a Go for the Throat or another Urtai in response to this reflection activation, if it gets killed, the game's over.
Yeah, and that's the tough part too, because you knew that Corey was going to see either 2 or 3 additional cards with the attack step here.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe a slight missed opportunity that I don't think will actually matter. I don't think Corey has a removal spell, but something to keep in mind if you are playing this deck at home as well.
Yeah, and I think Darren also realized that. You saw him kind of pump fake on the land a little bit. Like, I'm gonna copy this. Oh, wait, hold on. Maybe I'm not gonna copy. And Corey's over there playing it cool. You know, like, I got all these cards. Maybe I can kill it.
Always a cool customer. Has top aided so many events of this scale. Players Tour finals, all kinds of big events like this. Corey's a phenomenal Magic player.
Yeah, this is a big deal though, because this is a lot of damage with Darren only being at 12. So we're not attempting to copy even. We're just gonna straight up block.
Interesting. Okay. Was too afraid of a removal spell, it looks like. That wanted to just guarantee that at least Darren gets to live here.
Wow, that's and I've been in that spot that Darren's in. Like, it's unfortunate because you end up having to play around a removal card that sadly isn't even there, but you don't know that, right? And if you do attempt it, it's effectively a blowout.
Exactly.
So you just got to make the safe play, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean, you just got to make that end step play. Well, Corey's for sure tapped out to guarantee you have that block. Sometimes, tapping out and just letting your opponent know, yeah, I don't have a 1-mana removal spell or something is worth it in a situation like this where you kind of can't play around anything anymore. You can't have this facade that you don't, that you have a bunch of things that you're holding up. At this point in the game, you just got to recognize that you're pretty far behind and just have to make the suboptimal play or the optimal play every single turn.
Yeah, and so it looks like 3-5 got through, so that's going to put Darren down to 7. So we are well beyond lethal going into Darren's next turn here.
Yep, absolutely. So gonna need to be something big here. And as far as sweepers goes, I don't really see it. We do have a Gix command. Gix command can do some things. It can at least deal with Thalia and Denek. You can put some counters on Reflection. Not ideal. But outside of that, there is no Brotherhood's End, any other kind of sweeper that would really get Darren out of this with one
But
card.
you would get lifelink as part of that on your Reflection. So that would buy one more turn, I think.
Totally agree. Wouldn't be terrible.
Okay, this is fine. Like, this could help.
We're going to see 6 more cards here to try to find some removal.
Looks like we've got a Harvester, 2 Fables, and Make Disappear.
None of those do that much catching up. So yeah, I like that, just taking the most powerful card in a world where you maybe get to play a long game here where you can deal with some of these hard to deal with threats. But outside of that, looks like we have Soul Transfer, a tap land, Corpse Appraiser. The tap land is kind of brutal here with the Shores to not be able to go Reflection plus one of these 3 drops.
Yeah, you saw Darren kind of shake his head. I think he was doing the same thing looking at the land as you said that. Like, just kind of knowing the tough spot he's in.
Yeah, and we do have Corpse Appraiser. No corpses to be appraised with Denek on the battlefield.
Yeah,
so just forced to take it back.
Yeah, and this is tough because now you're getting that zombie back. Everything's got a block effectively here.
Yeah, and here's where Rafine just kind of looks, a little bit too powerful. When you are attacking with this many creatures and you get this many loot effects, naturally you're going to draw some non-creature stuff, so one creature is going to get a huge boost.
Yeah, Corey says, I'm not going to bother. I'll let you do the Steiner math. I'm just getting in there. This is too much.
Yep, absolutely. See some draw steps there. We just see a Shieldred. So worst case, you have a Shieldred as a follow-up here. Kind of everything going Corey's way to pick up this. And we do have the records will be adjusted a little bit, or in a little bit, excuse me. These players are both 1-0 instead of 0-0. This is round number 2 here at U.S. Regional Championship here in San Diego. If you're just joining us, well, thank you so much for being here. This is going to be a fun day full of magic.
Yeah, over 1,000 people already in the chat. So here at the early going. So hopefully y'all got your snacks and your drinks because it's going to be a long weekend of magic for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm here for it. I'm excited.
Yeah, it looks like Corey, maybe we're deciding where we're putting all these counters.
Yep. Deciding where, just doing the math.
Yeah.
You know, Corey's essentially doing the blocks for Darren when you're at this advanced stage in the game and you're this far ahead. You know, and just some players in general really like to talk out the lines, just just kind of openly. You know, I think Ben Stark is probably the one who's the most famous for this. We'll pretty much just talk out like what your opponent should be doing in this situation.
Well, normally we say math is for blockers, but I think the attackers had to do all the math here.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right. Look like we're going to go to assign blockers here.
Just deciding what we can do here. Darren at 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it looks like this is a forced triple block. So that's what Corey set up, is you must block with all 3 of your creatures. And that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
And they just said that's enough. Let's go to game 2.
All right. And pretty good game there. That, you know, it was a lot of things from Corey's side, from the Esper Legend side, just kind of shut off Darren's early game. Both players mulliganed. Corey had a pretty good draw, but Darren's removal spells just didn't line up very well, mostly to Scrub. You know, we saw that Go for the Throat essentially be thrown away, you know, in air quotes there, because, well, it needed to tap Scrub to be able to deal with some of the really other tricky permanents. So now in the post-board games, the sideboard numbers do get a little bit different as far as the removal spells go.
Yeah, and that's the toughest part. When you just get that early Skrelv and you don't have like a cut down or something for it, it's going to play a role the rest of the game, right? Like everything becomes about killing that Skrelv at some point, or a big chunk of the other cards you're packing to help you deal with problems are effectively just shut off.
Totally agree. And from Darren's side, there is one card that is pretty good against Skrelv, pretty good against Thalia, and a card that is definitely going to be coming in this matchup, and that's Nightclubber. Nightclubber being able to come into play and give your opponent's creatures -1/-1 can be a really handy tool, as well as some Flame Blast Bolts and Cut Down and 2 Brotherhood's End as far as different removal that Darren has access to in this matchup.
Yeah, and I like cards like Nightclubber because on their face, they're not great, but when you're in certain metagame situations, this is the type of card you go digging for when you're searching through Scryfall to solve a problem, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sometimes you just got to go clubbing, you know? Happens.
Man, I haven't been clubbing in like 20 years.
You and me both, man. I'm sitting here right now with I pulled back from playing tennis. I can't be doing any clubbing. Absolutely not. I barely make it to the night these days. I'm usually in bed, absolutely not clubbing at night. So yeah, I'm with you, Daquan.
I hear you. Yeah, I'm looking over the sideboards here for Darren, and it doesn't feel like there are a lot of cards to bring in, really.
Yeah, Flame Blast Bolts are pretty good. Cut Down is like the best card against Esper Midrange, so that's an auto include for me. But, you know, there's a lot of situations, especially for Darren, it's like, is Brotherhood's End even a good card? There are plenty of creatures that get around it. Adeline, Shieldred, plenty of other stuff as well. Where that is a card
Rafine
that,
even, you know, the real problem.
And Rafine, yeah. I mean, those are 4 really powerful creatures that don't get dealt with Brotherhood's End. So, you know, sometimes you can bring that in on the draw just to beat some kind of draws that Corey will have. And then you use like your Cut Down on Rafine and then untap Brotherhood's End to clean up the rest of the battlefield. That stuff can kind of be good when you pair it like that, but there's really no removal spell besides Cut Down that is really just a slam dunk from Darren. And even Cut Down doesn't kill a Shieldred, so.
Yeah, this is tough. I'm not sure which way Darren's going to go here because it doesn't feel like there's a lot of changes to be made.
Yeah. And then from Corey's side, we see AO go for the throat, an island, presumably for these decks that are trying to strip your lands away with Field of the Ruins and Demolition Field. But outside of this, like you see Lauren, which can come in for like Fable the Mirror Breaker, and then just some other enchantments. Wedding Announcement is also very good against Grixis, so we'll see that one. But probably not a ton of changes.
Wedding Announcement is a little underrated, I think, sometimes, but it's the fact that it's giving you both a creature and an enchantment, and
Yes.
when you're worried about Invoke Despair, that helps solve a lot of problems, even if it's just getting rid of your token so you don't have to get rid of a more quality creature.
Yep, totally agree with you. Yep, and Wedding Announcement ends up being that card against Grixis that, is the card, and that is really tricky to deal with. Because you have spot removal spells like Cut Down and Go for the Throat, you don't want to be spending them on these tokens, and then you just don't kill these tokens, and all of a sudden, now you're actually getting pressured by this card. So it's also kind of a Namba with Thalia, so it does have a little bit of a tension point with this Esper Legends deck, but still just a phenomenal card.
Yeah, we see the players conversing, it looks like, with their entourage, and we've got the officials there coming through. So, like, lots of activity happening in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. There we see Anurag in the background, who is, putting up this stream along with a bunch of other really talented people. So huge props to him and the rest of our production team in the back.
And again, like we've been saying all weekend, even though, say, for a lot of these players, some of their first high pressure events, we're seeing really positive spirits and friendliness so far. And that's kind of what you hope for when you see these types of events on coverage.
Wait till round 8 and 9, Daquan. I bet the energy will be a little bit different, as it is, when the matches start to really matter. But yeah, round 1, of course, it's always nice to see players having a nice kind of shoulders down, relaxing day.
Get those winning ends, get that stress up a little bit.
I don't know if I've ever just had a good, chill, relaxing winning in. I don't think that exists. Winning ins are just so important to be able to make it to those.
But, I think a lot of people don't necessarily take care of themselves during a lot of tournaments. And you get to the end of the day, you're hungry, you're a little bit dehydrated because you haven't been drinking throughout the day. And that kind of adds to your poor mental state sometimes too.
Yeah, too many people stay up because they hadn't seen their friends in forever that are in your hotel room playing games until 4 a.m. and then you're like, oh yeah, I have a tournament to play tomorrow and it's going to be a long, grueling day. That is a very underrated thing in big tournaments like this that you have to prioritize is just sleep, food, and water. I know it sounds crazy, but it really is undervalued for sure.
Hey, dude, I pack gummy bears and sunflower seeds with me when I go to tournaments. So just so I have snacks available. Usually a bottle of water, like a Gatorade or something, but usually some kind of snacks.
You plan better than me. I'll usually get some soggy French fries and bad nachos from convention centers, but I got to start doing that when I play tournaments. That's for sure.
Armadillo in chat says, this makes me miss paper matches. I agree. Like, we all want to be playing more paper Magic.
And looks like we are going to be, so have no fear. Paper Magic is back.
All right, so looking here at Darren's hand, we only have 2 lands? Is that correct?
I think I see 3 lands there.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, there's a 3rd one.
Yeah, Darren's hand's great. So we're on the mulligan. You see those dice there. That's really going to help us decipher how many cards they are down to. Darren's hand's excellent. Looks like Corey has another pretty land-heavy hand. I think I saw 2 spells, 5 lands. But when you're at this stage, no matter what you're keeping, I would imagine, unless it's like 2 Urtai, something like that, one of those strange scenarios. But for the most part, when you're already mulligan to this level and you got 2 spells and 4 lands, that's still going to be okay.
And you also have an early Thalia, and he just picked up a Denix. So this should work out for the first few turns, at least.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Darren just leaves a mana open here.
And did have that cut down, I believe. So we'll be able to deal with something, but not that.
Not Thalia.
And honestly, I believe Darren had another untapped land. So that is actually a... I would say pretty large misstep there, as Corpse Appraiser was another card in Darren's hand and Fable was another one. So now that would have been
huge.
By playing that Haunted Ridge to kind of be quote unquote efficient to play that instead of, I believe we had a Pain land at Caves of or the
Sulphur Springs.
Yeah, the Sulphur Springs. Thank you for that. I think that was an option, and then that would have changed this whole texture of this game kind of already. That's how much sequencing matters here in Standard.
Yeah, and I run into that a lot, and people always asking in the comments and stuff like, why did this matter? Why did I said, honestly, I lost this game on turn 2. Right? Like, and I think it's hard for people to see that sometimes because, like we're saying, even though Darren's still in an okay spot here, I don't think he lost on 2 in this scenario, but
Yeah.
he did get set behind for the efficiency his deck could be putting out right now.
Yeah, so that's the thing is Darren could be attacking with this Corpse Appraiser this turn, and then cut down Agdenic and playing Fable, something like that, you know. But of course, we still have a great game here where Darren's looking pretty good.
We're a long way from the finish on this one.
Oh, for sure.
Yep, and it doesn't look like either player is going to miss a land drop, so it's just what are they able to find beyond that? Because they both had a fair amount of lands to get rolling, and obviously Darren drew some extra here to help him out.
Yep, absolutely. So we did see for sure Urtai from Corey, which is looking like we're going to be representing here. Urtai is a card that is much, much better when you are already on the aggressive, when you already kind of have the tempo swing on your side. When you're using that as just a way to kill a creature and then untap it and kind of use that as your only threat, it gets a lot worse. You know, if it kills a Shieldred, sure, that's still fine. But if you're just giving your opponent another card after killing a Corpse Appraiser, not ideal. Then Corpse Appraiser is already a pretty natural, 3-for-1 here.
Yeah, and when you're in Darren's seat, you know Corey didn't cast anything. You know he's playing Urtais. Like, what cards are you trying to prioritize and just say, like, okay, I know something's probably going to get countered or die here. Like,
yeah,
that just feels tough.
It does feel tough, and it would have been interesting to me, like Shieldred, auto Urtide target, no matter what. Corey was doing that for sure. What would have been really interesting to me is what Corey would have done if Darren just went land go. You know, like, do you even cast Urtide? Do you care to deal with the Corpse Appraiser? That would have been an interesting tension point.
And I think that's a tough spot sometimes for a lot of players to decide, like, can I reasonably pass here and does it make sense? Now, it looks like the Dawn Sky just showed up, so we have a bit of serious business on the table now.
AO comes to play, and yeah, AO is incredible in this matchup. There is basically one clean answer that Darren has in his entire 75, and that's the one main deck Soul Transfer to be able to deal with that, which definitely is left in, but I mean, you got to find that card. Outside of that, if your opponent just gets the value off AO, it's pretty brutal for Grixis unless you're really far ahead already. So yeah, AO is incredible.
Yeah, this is now going to become a real problem. And it randomly just has Vigilance on top of everything else that it does.
Secret Vigilance, exactly. Yeah, green gets the Secret Reach. AO and white get the secret Vigilance.
Yeah, so this is... there may still be some ways out here for Darren, but this is where we're going to, like, we were talking about sequencing earlier, like, each card is going to become very important here.
Yep, so I did see Gix Command in that quick flash of the hand there, and I believe we still had Fable, from what I remember from the opening hand. But this looks like, oh wow, just no removal spell.
Yeah,
not
attacking for 5, AO. Going down to 10 here. And we still have more action from Corey, playing a Shieldred.
All right, Shieldred coming down. Let's see. Now Darren has two really big problems on the battlefield. The Urtite, not a big deal at all, but Shieldred and AO are both very scary.
We have a Skrelv too over here.
Oh, and just an untap for Darren.
Yeah, no removal. And yeah, now Skrelv's going to be able to protect everything. This got real bad real fast.
And so Gix Command was the card in Darren's hand, and Gix Command along with Brotherhood's End, we saw how awkward it looks. Like, look at this battlefield. It would have killed nothing. It would have, put some counters on your Corpse Appraiser, and then just all lands outside of that. So huge problem for Darren. Looks like Darren put back Fable the Mirror Breaker in that initial hand just to prioritize having and making land drops and getting thoroughly punished by his deck by just drawing nothing but lands off the top.
And here's that tough thing we talked about early on, right? Had we been able to play a Corpse Appraiser or that Fable early on time instead of having to worry about the Thalia, that would have really changed things.
That would have, but honestly, with how Darren drew, I don't know if it would have mattered. Like, AO and Shieldred here are huge problems. I'm kind of shocked we didn't fire off Gix Command even last turn just to, like, get Shieldred back, put 2 counters on Corpse Appraiser like we're doing now. Like, it feels bad because you're not getting full value of this card. You're getting your 1 card, and now Corpse Appraiser almost has to attack because it has lifelink for this turn.
I mean, otherwise, you're just taking too much next turn.
Yeah, and I mean, Darren got a little punished for not just doing that last turn, was looking to get more value off the card, but at least this turn you could just jam Shieldred as well, and then you're kind of closer to board
Actually,
stall.
I don't know if this really even matters. I think that's what Corey's looking at. Corey says, well, if I just take the 5, I
Oh,
still
yeah.
have 13 damage plus 2 more from Shieldred. So what do you have with 1 mana? It's all
Yeah,
right.
I
Now you
I
got
think we
2.
are I think we are just seeing lethal on the crackback, and no fault to Darren whatsoever here because that would have just been chump block with corpse. You're gonna die
Sure.
over a couple series of turn. There's no big catch-up mechanism. But yeah, this looks like Corey is gonna be advancing to a quick 2-0 with Esper Legends, which has looked really good in Corey and Sam's hands so far.
Yeah, I think Corey kind of hesitated and he's looking at the math and going, okay, well, maybe you have a kill spell with 2 lands here. He says, wow, nothing happened. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, you have Skrelv up, so it just doesn't matter. Darren's going to 2. Skrelv's there to protect Shieldred for the draw step, and it's going to be a handshake time.
Nothing. Yep, that's it. Wow. So yeah, so Esper Legends there takes down another one. It's looking pretty good so far, and I think we expected that. So I'm not totally surprised, but it'd be interesting to see what decks do give it problems, especially when we have a field with so many rogue decks running around.
Totally agree. I mean, I think Rakdos has a pretty decent matchup against Esper, but that's the thing about Standard, why we see this percentages that are so kind of spread out. Everything's close. Everything has game against everything, and that's why this format is really incredible to watch. So something else that's going to be incredible to watch is to see our first interview with Tan and Grace and Corey.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the RC here in San Diego. We're in the feature match area with Corey Burkhart. You're 2-0, you just won your second match here today. How are you feeling about your deck choice? You were talking to me about this beforehand. You're playing Esper Legends, and you went through kind of all the decks in Standard, but you found it here.
Yeah, so my process really started with Toxic. It was obviously the cheapest deck to build on Arena, so I was pretty happy to build that. I was in Bronze because I hadn't played Arena in a while, and I was getting trashed. And I was like, okay, this doesn't cut it. I don't know how to play Toxic. Clearly, this isn't my play pattern. Went trying to play Grixis. Obviously, people know me as a Grixis guy. That's my color combo. Let's do it. And I just couldn't get it to stick. So then I'm trying like red-black. I tried Jund for a little while. Every time it just felt a little bit off. And then I picked up Esper after talking to Alexander Hayne. And my first draw with the deck was Skrelv into Thalia into Rafine. And I was like, oh my God, this is so powerful. Like the number of like avenues that the opponent has to come back are so minimalized in that scenario that I just felt like, okay, this is the deck for me. This actually just can crush people on the play. And you can play these really tactical games on the draw like I just played in that match as well. So, I mean, Esper's not for everybody, but it's definitely my jam this weekend.
Now, you have a unique perspective when it comes to card games. You've been helping design another game in your spare time. Like this is your job, that you actually do besides Magic. I still put you in the same pro level that you used to be, but it's not the only thing that you're doing anymore. You're not just playing Magic. And so does helping design another card game help you with like the actual play of the game, that like stuff we see here?
Oh, absolutely. Like the number of different things that you're thinking about in design, like usually you're more focused on, okay, what are the play patterns? Is this actually like a fun experience? Is this like something that we want to promote? Is it something that we're happy shipping this, but we want it to be more fringe? And you get a lot of different thoughts and different perspectives of looking at different experiences when you're working on design. And that just is so paramount when you're playing games like this. Sure, I don't have 12 hours a day to test anymore, right? Like you have a daytime job. I don't get to play as many games as I would like, but I'm not needing as much time to test, because when you're working on other card games, board games, whatever it may be, you're looking for a lot of these different, routes and these avenues that players could take when you're actually just working on the game itself. And that just allows me to see a lot of different lines that maybe I wouldn't have been as apt to do 10 years ago when I was just starting out in the industry. And, sitting there playing my little kid Abzan aggro, just stoked with my awesome Fleece Mane Lion or Chasta's Death Dealer. But, I mean, a lot of those same, lessons that you learn, they don't translate one-to-one, but you gain a lot of experience of how do I think outside of the box and outside of the norm when working on games or just playing games for that matter.
Well, Corey, I'm really sad that you're not playing Grixis here today, but your deck seems to be doing just fine. You're 2-0. Thanks for the time. Good luck the rest of the tournament.
Pleasure. Thanks.